So hello fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And I just saw Joe Rogan's guest, Elon Musk, who went on Joe Rogan again. I guess this time he didn't smoke any weed. But let's jump into it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, close to the end, Joe was talking about the fact that Elon had got him to buy a Tesla. And Joe says he loves it. He says he loves to take people in the car and do that 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and just see or just experience how they feel. Like him and Elon, they thought that it was like having a roller coaster ride on tap, is how they put it. And I thought that was so cool. I mean, I've seen, a couple of videos and things, but then Elon was saying it's faster than falling. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. And I'm glad that Joe liked it. And he's like, he'll ask the kids, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? And his wife will say, don't do it. And then they'll do it and they'll be like so excited. Next thing now was positive. Elon talked about Neuralink. Now by now, a lot of people would have known about Neuralink, which is supposed to be an interface. It's supposed to be a brain interface with technology. Obviously, there is a lot that still needs to be tested and learnt. But Elon thinks that by the end of this year, that means maybe next year, that they will be implanting it in people's heads. And I think that's really exciting and it's interesting. They talked a good while about the idea that we already are a bit of a hybrid. It's just not a direct hybrid. As Elon would say, the band transmission rate, or the transmission rate is just really slow in terms of reading text or, listening on a phone call. It's not like a high bandwidth transmission thing like Ethernet or fiber optic or something. So this is supposed to be that fiber optic interface, and they really need to figure out how to do it. Next thing is Elon apparently said that he was going to sell all of his homes and try to concentrate on basically the stuff that really matters. He talked about the fact that he bought Gene Wilder's house and how it was cool, and he was selling it, and he wanted to sell it to somebody who would preserve it the way that it is, because they were going to just tear the house down. Gene Wilder is this really cool comedian from way back when, who used to he acted with Richard Pryor in a couple of movies, and they were some good stuff. They were funny. Anyway, he also talked about the fact that he had wanted to build a house, and Joe asked him, is it going to be like a Tony Stark kind of thing? He's like, yeah, definitely. And Joe laughed, of course. And then he's like, but which one matters? You only have a certain amount of time. Am I going to focus all this energy on a house that he may not even live in? That's why he's selling all these different houses that he has. Or he's going to try to get to Mars, or to transform how the planet uses energy. And of course, those are nothing compared to building a house. I mean, building a house is nothing compared to that. So that's why he's divesting of all that stuff, and he's just going to rent. Now for the bad, unfortunately. I think Elon's idea of freedom is nuts. Basically, he was saying that if somebody wants to go out there and subject themselves to COVID, they should be allowed to do that. And I know that's the American way. Unfortunately, that didn't work in China. I think to an extent, South Korea didn't pass any laws or anything to prevent people. But the reason why China has, no new deaths, or I think maybe they have 1 or 2 every once in a while. Actually, it's probably been a couple of days since they had any. The reason why they were able to do that is because they curtailed the people's freedom. And, it's a simple thing. Joe brought up the fact, and they were talking together like, yeah, it's not that bad, blah, blah, blah. But Joe brought up the fact that, some people are saying that part of the reason why they will curtail your freedom to go out there and get it if you want it is because you are trying to protect the freedom of people who don't have a choice. Like babies who can't get vaccines and whatever else. And Elon became a little bit curt. Not he wasn't rude to Joe, but he became a little bit curt to say, that I think that it's people's choice. And no, no, Elon, it's not people's choice. People can't decide that they want to go and build a nuclear power plant wherever they want. It's my land. I can. No, really, you can't. You can't buy, fighter planes and missiles and bombs. You can't. In terms of explosives and stuff, no, you can't. In certain countries, you can't go out and get a gun. You can't decide that you want to have a chemical plant on your land. The things that people's freedoms, they intersect with other people's freedoms. And when you have absolute freedom, you are curtailing somebody else's freedom to fresh air, to a noise-free environment, to life. I think you're a little bit crazy, Elon. I don't know what's wrong with you. Why that you can't see that. Next point is he's a bit of a capitalist, and with the idea that he believes, that billionaires should exist. And he didn't say it like this, but his idea is that, my money's my money. And no, your money is not your money. Money is something that we all agree on. If everybody decided that they don't want to accept, if everybody decided that we or they didn't want to accept Elon's money, then it's kind of useless. Then he can't buy anything. Yeah, then you can get somebody to do it for you, but that person would have to agree. And we already established that nobody would accept your money. They're not going to do anything for you, so then it's not your money, your wealth. Everything that you have is contingent on everybody else. And I think that this idea of billionaires, that somebody should have an indefinite amount of money, more than they can spend in their entire lifetime, more than can be spent probably by several generations of their family, at which point they are giving money to strangers. Your great 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 grandkid, how related are they to you when you're standing next to 80 other great 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 grandparents? I mean, so yeah, I know people think, no, your money is what we agree that it is. If it is that everybody disappeared, you would have the whole world, and you wouldn't have to pay for anything, but you also wouldn't get anything that you need other people to produce. Your money is not an abstract thing that's an absolute thing. It's an agreed upon thing. What you own and all of these things are what we agree that you do own. So yeah, I think all billionaires would probably think just like Elon. And I think that, as I mentioned in another piece, that they might have a mental illness. I think being too rich might be a mental illness. Aside from that, Elon admitted the fact that he doesn't like to exercise, and that as you grow older, you gain weight. No. I know that that's what normally happens, but it mainly happens to people who can afford to do that kind of thing. There are a lot of other people in life who can't get that way. And this is one of the things that you realize that money can't buy for you. Money can't buy you a new body. I mean, not really. You can go and have how many tummy tucks and whatever else, and at some point you build up so much scar tissue that money is not going to get rid of that scar tissue. There's nothing that you can do, no matter how much money you have, to have an excellent body tomorrow. It's just, it's one of those things. It's bad and it's sad, and Elon's getting bigger and bigger, and hopefully he can find a way to get smaller and fit, but I'm not seeing it. I guess there's a certain amount of stuff that you can do in your life, and he's not seeing the worth of being healthy, really. So of course he doesn't see, as I mentioned, the worth of opening up too soon might make things worse. He had that idea that, you have to make things. If you don't make things, they're not going to be things. You can't just give everybody money and it's going to be there. No, Elon, there's essential workers. Essential workers are going to be people in food and whatever else, and the government can give the people what they need so that they'll be around tomorrow in order to work in your factory and do everything else and bring food for you and everything else. They don't have to go out there and work, and that's, that's another thing. Elon and Joe, they talked about it like, yeah, it's older people and people with diseases and so on. And they did reach that point. They said it. Elon said, I think it was Joe said, hey, yeah, overweight and obese people really have a problem. They have a big problem. I think that's how they got on the topic of whether or not Elon exercises and stuff. And I guess he thinks maybe he has those tests because, when you're a billionaire, I guess you can do that. Maybe he has those tests because he could get it and he could end up in ICU. And all because of opening up this stuff. He likes to be in the weeds and stuff. He likes to be amongst on the floor the plants. He could get it, and everything that he put his head to could just poof disappear. But I guess he doesn't see that the worth in exercising and being healthy, as well as making sure you stamp this thing out before it catches fire and all of your predictions about, it's not that serious, come to nothing. One of the things that Elon mentioned is that, it's like watching a movie again, because I already saw all this stuff play out in China, and, it's happening again in the US. And, it really wasn't that bad in China. And Joe brought up the fact that, hey, do we trust what China is saying? And then Elon said things that made sense, which are, listen, we have 7,000 people in China. None of them died. We have suppliers in China. We know what they can actually send us. And we can tell if, we have so many different suppliers. If China was hit, and he didn't say it, I'm just paraphrasing, if China was hit to the extent that people are suggesting that it might have, it would affect our supply chain. He's like, he knows so many people who got it and none of them died. So I guess that's why he thinks it's nothing. But Joe knows people who got really very sick from it. He keeps bringing up that comedian. Other people say, yeah, he's a great comedian, love that guy, da-da-da-da. So, and that's the thing. What's his name? Elon is saying that, yeah, it happened in China. It happened in China and everything's fine. Yeah, because China, there's no freedom, there's no choice. If you want to go out and subject yourself to it, really, you couldn't do that in Wuhan. So you saw that it ended in China and it's over, and you think, oh yeah, the same thing's going to happen here, it'll be over. Except it's not. It is at its peak in China, in the US, and you are egging it to get worse by doing the opposite of what they did in China. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling him about regression to the mean. And there's several other, psychological things that you can talk about in this vein, which is that people who know a little, they're the worst because they trust their instincts more than somebody who knows a good deal about the subject or an expert. They know very little, and they feel that they know so much and they understand so much. Elon should know a lot about engineering and SpaceX. He should know a lot about AI and perhaps, Tesla. He should know a lot maybe about Neuralink. He's been in a lot of meetings about that. The gaping hole in his understanding might have to do with viruses and how these things get, just pandemics. Maybe he hasn't taken the time, nobody's sat down with him. Maybe he hasn't talked to Bill Gates or somebody, but he's really talking like a fool, honestly. And the idea with regression to the mean is that basically the smarter you are in one thing or a number of different things, the drastically dumber you're going to be in a bunch of other things. And the way that this dude is talking is that he's drastically dumber in a bunch of other things. And that isn't a bad thing. It's just that when you don't realize that you're dumber in another field, and you have, I can't remember, is it the Downing something effect? And like they say, I think this is something Dunny effect. And yeah, he doesn't know that he doesn't know when he's talking out of his butt. Anyway, for the ugly, Elon said some ugly stuff. Well, I guess it's not really that ugly. I just needed to fill up this column with ugly. He said that he would trade good food for more life. Like he would prefer to eat, and that's why his butt is fat. He is overweight, and he prefers to be like that because he wants to eat good food. And it's funny because I recently saw, and I used to be extremely overweight myself. So does that give me license to talk about being overweight? I think so. I'm not saying that it's hard to lose, it's easy to lose weight, because it definitely isn't. I can see why some people who don't understand and they're not mentally set up. They haven't gone through some kind of a boot camp where you can get better. That's why they say, oh my God, and they give up. Because they're used to giving up at 3 when there's up to 100 to go. So I understand that. I understand that that's why they can't get to 4 and 5. Once I told myself that I needed to lose weight, I realized it was a marathon. And it was never really going to end like that. But anyway, Elon would trade some life for food. And again, this to me seems to be, as I mentioned before, him just talking a little bit of crap because he wants to get to Mars. What doctor is going to give him an okay to get up in a spaceship if he's overweight? I think at that point, he's going to have to think about it and I don't know what choice he's going to make, because the choice that he's making now doesn't look like the smart one. Now, Elon, again, he doesn't think that things are so bad. He thinks the mortality rate is really low. He thinks that there are a bunch of hospitals that are empty. And, basically people die of so many other things, and we're not really concerned about that. Yes, Elon, people die of a lot of different things. All of those things cannot be easily worsened, like, by an action that we do or do not do right now. Nobody is in a situation right now where we're saying, okay, raise the speed limit to 200 miles an hour and let's see how many people die. But that's what you're suggesting. You're suggesting that just go back to the way that things were, because, the mortality rate is really, really low and it's not that bad. And based on what, Elon? What statistic? What have you read? Because as far as I know, there are a lot of, like in Italy, they were lining up coffins. And maybe you should have been in Italy. Maybe you should have gone to Spain. Maybe you should have been in Wuhan itself to actually experience some of these things, because this is what I'll say. Smoking kills a lot of people throughout the year. And we have the capacity to deal with that. And I think that's in things that confuse people a lot. When something is built in, we have the capacity. We're dealing with that. It's like if you have a bus and everybody has a seat on the bus. If you decide that you want to do something that is going to cause, half another, whatever the capacity of the bus is, you're going to try to fit, half as many people on again. So it's going to be 150% of the first amount of people. That's going to cause a problem. That's going to cause all sorts of problems when you increase the number of deaths, even to our eyes, by, it's just a small amount. Yeah, I guess, again, because you don't know that little amount can tip us into a world of hurt. Yeah, it's just 3% of the people. But let's say in the US, I believe it is that, it's 325 million people. And let's say it's 1% of the people that are going to die. If it's 1% of 300 and something million, that's going to be about 3 million people. Smoking kills about 500,000 people every year. If you're going to have something like 3 million people, even 1.5 million people, that's 3 times the amount of people that die of smoking. How are we going to cremate all these people in the same year that we already have the capacity for those people dying of smoking? How are we going to fit them in hospitals? How are we going to deal with 3 times as many people? Well, I don't know how many people die in the US every year, but that's the thing. That little bit doesn't seem like a big deal. There's no capacity for it. There's something called just in time. Just in time, I forget what it's called, the whole thing. But the idea of it is that groceries used to have a big warehouse, and now they don't. They'll say, okay, we know that we need 50 bottles of soup every day, so bring exactly 50 bottles of soup. That's not how it is. I think they have like at least for 3 days worth of stuff. But if it is that anything happens and it disrupts that 50 bottles, then the shelves will be bare, because they don't have any storage capacity to deal with that emergency. And that's exactly what can happen if you open up the country before things are okay. You can make things 10 times worse than they would have been. So, Elon actually went into what the kid's name was. As far as I got it, was X Ash is what I got. I think there's a little bit more to it. I think it's maybe A12 or A29, named after a plane. So it's XAE, which is X Ash, I guess, and then some other stuff. I thought that's kind of interesting. It's nice. I probably have to read an article on really, but then again, it's his kid, it's his business. I'm not entirely too interested. Sorry, kid. I'm more interested in your dad being alive, even though he's talking a lot of crap. Plus, Elon's other kids, I'm sure that this is not, this kind of puts them so much in the shade. This kid is going to overshadow all his other kids. That's so sad. But anyway, hopefully this was interesting to you. And of course, you can always take in the full thing on Joe Rogan's podcast. So you can wish me lucks. You can like, unlike, comment, subscribe, and or share. And of course, you can also do nothing. Peace.